Second race of the weekend about to get underway for GT Cup Europe in the second meeting of the season here at the Circuit des SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS. We're in the Ardennes and we have typical Belgian weather here. We've had grey clouds and cold temperatures and very persistent rain all day up until about half an hour ago, I think, when it actually did stop raining. There are still damp patches around the racetrack. The circuit has been declared wet, but I would anticipate that the majority of the cars, if not all of the cars, have opted for the slick tyre for this race start. It's once again Matteo Lovisi who starts on pole position for this one. It's his second pole position in as many outings, much like Paul Meyer for the Hans Weiss crew, but it's the team that has the reigning champions and the reigning teams champions starting at the front. But some surprises in qualifying. We've got some AM runners up at the front of the field. Evgeny Leonov on his return to the championship, lining up on the front row of the grid. Wet qualifying this morning, throwing up some real surprises. Chris Stevens up here in the commentary box. Alongside me is George Morgan. Real mixed up grid after a wet qualifying session.
And a clutch lap from Matteo Lovisi as well. It came late in the day, did it not? Brilliant stuff from the Italian and from Braga. And now stands tall on the front row, joined by Evgeny Leonov on his return to the championship. Ludovico Laurini starting P4, though, as we're looking at it, on the same row as Dieter Schweppes. That car, remember, having some problems yesterday. And they're now looking to come back with a flourish this time around. Of course, former AM champions, reigning AM champions, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, we got further back as well, Ludovico Longoni, also part of Silver Class. He will be alongside Jurian de Back, who will be partnering Paul Meyer once again, who's had a very active weekend, obviously combining race weekend here in Spa with one in Germany as well.
Yes, so Paul Meyer arriving here with, I think, next to no sleep. He may well have been able to kip since arriving here, but did the majority of his driving with the Nürburgring 24 hours through the last night evening, and then into this morning, and then hopped in the car back over to Spa. And yeah, we're yet to see how that's going to affect him. Memories of Sebastian Buemi trying to do the same thing in a Formula E race some years ago that did not end very well. Let's look back at yesterday. Paul Meyer starting from pole position. The Fimes team car, Pietro Deli Guanti, starting alongside him, went side by side into La Source. But it was actually the GT Course car that was challenging for second place. ZRS Motorsport going around the outside of the GT Course car, the Pro-Am leader, making their way into the podium places. Battles all the way down the field as the AM runners sorted themselves out, and Leandro Martins with a very ballsy move into Eau Rouge and Albradion on the GDL racing car. Did end up taking to the escape road slightly, but no bother, as Jurian de Back took over the number 7 car, the championship leading car from Hans Weiss Motorsport. We saw spins for Fagani Saluba in the number 6 HWM car. Battles further down as Rick van Zwierden made his way up in the AM leading car from HWM. But Jurian de Back resisted the pressure of Matteo Lovisi to take a second victory of the season for the number 7 HWM crew, beating out their rivals at Fimes team. So race 2 about to get underway. It's 50 minutes of racing to come. Here is how they line up. It's the second pole position of the season for Matteo Lovisi and the Fimes team. Evgeny Leonov on his return to the championship at Volcano Motorsport, alongside him on AM pole position, alongside Elamar Motorsports, Dieter Schweppes and Ludovico Laurini for Bi-Race Motorsports with their best starting position. Ludovico Longoni in the ZRS car that finished third yesterday starts alongside yesterday's race winner, Jurian de Back for Hans Weiss Motorsport. Fourth row of the grid is Bernardo Pinheiro, the first of the Pro-Am cars, and then Rick van Zwierden, the AM winner from yesterday. Fifth row of the grid is Fernando Navarrete, the pre-event championship leader in the AM category, alongside Giacomo Gibergia in the 44 car from GDL Racing. Sixth row of the grid is Jose Barros in the AF Motorsport at Porsche, Alejandro Barambio in the car that won in Pro-Am yesterday from GT Corsa. Matteo Martinelli in the second of the Fimes team cars, Fagani Saluba in the third and final Hans Weiss Motorsports car, and the back of the grid, Nelson Marcondes also for GDL Racing, the number 87 machine. So, George, some damp patches still on the racetrack. We just had the GT Open 500-kilometre race around here. and even they were getting caught out at times by the track conditions. So, and look at that, the wipers are on as well, so there may well still be some rain in the air.
Yeah, and even from the distant shot we saw of the cars coming through Rouge and Radion, you can just see that glaze on the top of the track surface where the lights are reflecting off it. So a real indicator that the rain is continuing to fall and that track is relatively lubricated. So they're going to have to be very, very careful in terms of how they apply these slick tyres. We're currently riding on board at the moment with Jose Barros down in 11th place. Of course, he's representing in silver class. Work to do for both he and Matteo Martinelli, because their fight is obviously with the likes of Lavisi, Larini, Longoni, Urian de Back. Now, whilst of course that is their fight, they need to make an impression overall. Classes aside, it doesn't matter if they, well, it's not a case that they finish, say, the third highest silver or the fourth highest silver. It's what you are overall that matters in the silver class. If you're AM P1 but sat in P2, you're still the AM winner if you're Evgeny Leonov. So that is the disparity obviously between the classes. So work to do for those silver drivers down inside or outside of the top 10. Elsewhere though, keep your eyes on Urian de Back. Hans Weiss looking very strong this weekend. They are going to have to try and dial in a little bit on their driver change windows, because Hans Weiss himself and Rick van Zwierden, if you remember yesterday, car 5 receiving a penalty in race 1 for coming in for a driver change after the window had closed. They were giving a 10-second time penalty for that. They'll be hoping they don't suffer the same fate today.
Absolutely. A reminder, in the Pro-Am Championship, it is now GT Corsa, Alejandro Barambio and Borja Garcia that now lead that category. And then in the AM standings, it should still be Fernando Navarrete and Fernando Pedrera, after a strong result for them yesterday. So we'll keep you abreast on those as the race unfolds. So the cars making their way towards the final corner. Last chance to get some heat into the tyres. We are seeing some streaks of rain on the windshields. How is that going to affect them when they get down into La Source for the first time of asking? Is it the really aggressive efforts there from Fernando Navarrete in the number 19 car from Tsunami RT? But the Cupra pace car will soon peel off into the pit lane, and Matteo Lavisi will lead them into the first corner. In theory, shouldn't have too many arguments down into the first corner if he's being followed by the AM class drivers. Maybe he's got to keep an eye on Ludovico Larini. You'd assume he has to get past those two cars in front of him early doors in order to have a real impression in this race. As the cars make their way down the start-finish straight, not really in formation, but we go green anyway. Racing for the second time this weekend, and Leonov does actually have a very good launch. Pulls to the outside. It is Larini, though, in the bi-race car, the blue and the white and orange machine that pulls to the outside. It does manage to get around Dieter Schweppes for third position. It's Lavisi who leads. Leonov in second. Larini now in third for the bi-race crew. They head towards Eau Rouge, and up Radion for the first time, and a big swapper there for Leonov on the way into the corner. Does manage to keep it on the racetrack, but surely he's lost momentum to the bi-race car as they make their way down Kemmel for the first time. Wipers at work for Matteo Lavisi, and flashing of the lights there for Ludovico Larini as he's in the slipstream of Evgeny Leonov. And again, Leonov having a squirm under braking, this time into Les Combes, but he manages to keep it on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, great start there for Lavisi, holding firm. Leonov also there too. Oh, just getting onto the curb there. We just witnessed Urian de Back taking a very tight, aggressive line. Could have been the undoing, really, of him at the same time too. Larini, very close, looking at the inside, a slight little bit of contact there with Leonov as they now make their way through. In fact, has there been a change there? Yes, there has. Great move there from Larini. So the silver driver now moving into second place. Dieter Schweppes, obviously in the midst of all this too, and aggressive flashing of the lights there for Larini now once more. Obviously keen to make an impression on Lavisi this time.
But Leonov again getting sideways, and this time running wide into Pouon. Maybe something's not quite right at the rear of that Volcano Motorsport Porsche, because it is snaking around so much out there, and I assume he will have lost a place there as a result of that off-track certainly a wide moment, whether he did actually go completely off the racetrack. And yes, he lost out to Dieter Streps there, who now has the AM lead. And Fernando Navarreti's the next car in the Jury back, going right around the outside of Jose Barros, I think that is, in the 77 car.
Is there something wrong with that left rear?
Whoa, sideways again. And yeah, well, you may well be pointing to what I was just alluding to there, George, because I'm not sure everything is well aboard Leonov's car. And if you're saying you've seen something that's a bit...
That left rear does not look right. I got to say that...
he's off again?
Yeah, there's some strange movement there with that left rear tyre, I swear. Honestly, I'm just looking at it now as they make their way through. Surely he's going to bring it into the box because something does not look right.
Well, he can't turn right into this pit lane because it's the support pits that these guys are using this weekend, so he's got to wait another corner before he can swing it right into the pit lane. But yeah, dramas for Evgeny Leonov, and what a shame after such a stellar qualifying performance for the returning driver. And surely he is going to swing it right here. We're on board with Salub. No, Leonov is carrying on. Okay, interesting. He's side by side at the moment with Rick van Zwieren in the Hans Weiss Motorsport car. So all that change and squabbling, and he seems to have gathered up some pace now, but the long and the short of it is Lavisi and Larini separated by about half a second. Dieter Streps in third, Navarrete in fourth, that's the top two in AM, and then Jose Barros and Jurien de Back squabbling over fifth position overall, and that was Barros just keeping his nose in front of the Hans Weiss Motorsports car, and now Ludovico Longoni in the ZRS car, the number 22, that follows them.
Yeah, coming through out of Malmedy now. The VC still holding on to the lead. It's two silver cars that are holding on to the top two places. Streps managing his pace at the moment, but 3.1 is now the deficit between him and Laurini. Fernando Navarrete, of course, in that MP2 position, fourth overall, but 1.3 disconnected from the back of Streps, as a very wide line taken by Jurien de Back on that occasion, certainly not as dialed in as perhaps Barros in that fifth place, as they now head down in towards the Lafanier chicane. Further back, the sister HWM car as well on show for Van Zwieren. In eighth, will be handing over to Hans Weiss himself later on when the driver change window does indeed open up. Pinheiro, who's currently down in ninth, managed to overtake Leonov fairly recently in that LMR car. Another look up the inside again, this time on Van Zwieren. Unable to do so, but just flashing those lights again, just maybe trying to throw Van Zwieren off, and Leonov descending even further now. Just look at that confirmation on our timing screen, 12th place. It really has been a horrendous start for Leonov.
These are the leaders. Lavisi still holding a very narrow margin over Ludovico Laurini, the former Italian GT driver in the Cup class. And Jurien de Back makes his move on the inside of Jose Barros, who doesn't leave him much space at the apex, and in fact goes across the runoff area and a hop, skip and a jump over the curbs. So that then definitely loses in the place to Jurien de Back, and then also to Ludovico Longoni as well. The red and white ZRS Porsche making its way through. So de Back now fifth as Longoni consolidates that move for sixth position. Is that yet another off for Evgeny Leonov? At what point does he think, maybe I've got something wrong with the car?
Yeah, there's definitely something wrong, because that's not the first time we've seen him run wide at Blanchimont, is it? And let alone every other place on track.
I've lost track already.
Yeah, honestly, quite a few track limits have been breached by that Volcano car, but we've got movement now towards the front, because Matteo Lavisi under fire from Ludovico Laurini over the lead of the race, and Laurini takes the lead. Now moving through towards Les Combes. Can he come back, though? Matteo Lavisi, the bargain man, the Italian, straight up the inside, very tight and aggressive on the run through towards Malmedy, but can't cultivate the overtake.
Well, Bi-Race Motorsport leads in GT Cup Europe for the first time since the new investors of the Biotto Group overtook what was formerly known as the Race Vents team. Laurini to the front now. This battle for fifth position, not quieting down at all. De Back and Longoni and Barros still absolutely line astern, and Rick van Zwieren is sticking with them, in fact, in the second of the HWM cars, bringing with him Bernardo Pinheiro, the Pro-Am leader.
Yeah, at the moment, Pinheiro down in P9. Of course, the matter that concerns him most is that Pro-Am lead advantage. Salubra down in 11th place, still closing up on Martinelli, 0.8 of a second. as it stands. As our timing screen appears on the left-hand side, as you can see it, folks. 43 minutes to go. Levici still with the fastest lap of the race so far after that last lap at 2:26, but obviously the tyres need to get embedded. Very tricky to do so as well when you've got a thin skin of wet level of condition on the track, as well at the same time with the lights glowing on the surface of it. Of course, it is getting slightly darker out here at Spa, and in fact the clouds are looking ever greyer at the moment as they pan across the Ardennes circuit, making their way through the forests here in Stavelot as they now fly through the Blanchimont high-speed section. The run down now through towards the heavy braking zone at bus stop. There is Longoni hunting down after Jurian de Bag, with Barros now down in P7. As we now see the Evgeny Leonard Volcano car now again coming under pressure, this time from the GT Corsa, the number 14 of Barambio, who is currently third in that Pro-Am class and 13th overall. Giacomo Gierbergier then further back with Marcondes towards the rear and 1.1 away from his fellow Am class driver. Wheel to wheel though once again. This is Longoni taking up, well, with Barros taking him on the run up now through towards Eau Rouge and Radion. This is a silver class battle now between these two as they now fly uphill. Longoni holding on to sixth for now. Barros might yet get a run though with a tow if they fly up through towards the Lecom section, but they're joined by Van Zveerden, who could complicate matters ever so slightly. Larini managing to certainly consolidate this P1 position as now Van Zveerden looks to the outside here. This is an Am car trying to take on the silver right now, and Van Zveerden may have overtaken as far as the timing line's concerned, but it looks like Barros has managed to maintain the position.
Not bad for Van Zveerden. He's only done a handful of races in the entire life. The sim racing convert. Longoni as well, the former Clio Cup racer, shouldn't be too afraid of going side by side through Eau Rouge, so he's done that plenty of times in his Clio days around this circuit. But Barros losing ground now on Longoni as a result of that. Still the rain streaking across the front of these cars. Remember, they are on slick tyres for the start of this race. They're making their way through Pouhon. Slightly wider moment there for Rick Van Zveerden. He's got the Pro-Am leader right behind him, Bernardo Pinheiro, the son of the late founder of the Portimao circuit. And there, the silver, blue and red car behind is Matteo Martinelli, the second of the Fimes team cars. Martinelli in the 27th, mini challenge champion. As Pinheiro looked up the inside, squares the car up onto the inside of curve at Paul Frere, and Van Zveerden being very compliant there with the LMR car on his inside. That opens up the door for Martinelli, who gets a run, but is going to be blocked by the HWM car in front of him. He's certainly getting a tow, but he's not going to be able to move too much farther forward, but in the end it doesn't matter. So he moves into 9th position overall, does Martinelli, and I'm sure we'll make short work of Van Zveerden as well. Looks towards the inside at the bus stop, but nothing doing there.
I thought he'd fancy a bonus prize going late on the brakes, coming in towards bus stop, opted against it. Maybe a little bit fearful of how the track's behaving. Obviously, with the water that has come down, obviously might want to try something a little bit more certain. But nothing's for sure here at Spa. Just see there further back, Pinheiro, of course, watching all over the back of Martinelli as they cross the timing line to begin yet another lap. And now taking the rise up through towards Eau Rouge and Radion. Still Van Zveerden in P8, 1.6 away from Barros now. It was only moments ago, or feels like moments ago, where he was trying to take on Barros for that P7 spot. Of course, it didn't pan out, and now he's facing attacks from behind, as now we see the 911 Porsche of Dieter Schweppes with Navarrete having a look around the outside. This is over the Am lead, but also the overall P3 position as we're currently seeing it. Of course, bear in mind, not forgetting, handicaps need to be served as well, folks. The driver change window opening up in approximately 10 minutes or so's time as they head down. Once again, movement here from Navarrete, looking to the outside as they come through Rivage. Will he cut back again through Jackie X? A nudge in the back, though, of Dieter Schweppes. A little bit rude.
It was a little bit. Both of these cars are unhandicapped, and so it's a straight fight throughout this race for the Am lead between these two by the looks of it, especially considering that yesterday's race winners, the number 5, they're taking 10 seconds as a result of that. And amongst our leaders as well, you would say that Larini is very well placed because, of course, Levici will be taking 5 seconds after finishing second yesterday.
And no such concerns for by-race for this one.
Exactly.
So they're going to be in a very comfortable spot when the pit stops come in, you'd think. but we'll wait and see. Of course, anything can happen in racing. You need a good release amongst everything else.
Larini doing the fastest lap of the race last time around, a 2:26.0, extending the lead 2.9 seconds over Matteo Lovisi now, the second in the championship. So really strong pace here from the bi-race crew early doors.
Purple in the middle sector on this one too.
Yeah, I'll be handing that car over to Diego Stifter in the next part of the race, who was teammates with him at Race Vents in Italian GT last year. In separate cars, should point out, but they know each other well. So cars make their way through the bus stop chicane. Again, we're getting the fantastic drone shots throughout the race, getting a great look at the cars making their way through the more technical section of the racetrack. Really only 2 low-speed corners you have around this Spa circuit. The rest of it is very fast and incredibly furious. As at 2.9 seconds now, the lead for Ludovico Larini over Matteo Lovisi. As the 2 AM leading cars have spread out a little bit since we last checked in with them, and Yuri and De Back closing in on them as well. About a second quicker last time around was the young Dutchman.
Plenty of mid and high-speed corners here at Spa. Things do get relatively technical when you make your way through the middle sector into Sector 3 with, of course, the run out of Rivage taking you through Jackie X, and then the Pouon section taking you in towards Les Farniers. Arguably that becoming largely the more technical point, where then you reach Campus and Stavolo, and the danger there being the gravel trap on the left-hand side that has caught many a driver out before.
Farniers being the region that the village of Francorchamps is situated in. That corner also sometimes called the Piff Paff, which is its Flemish name, which is it sort of means flip-flop, because it's a right-left. That's where the
some cars do have flip-flops through that section from time to time. When
Evgeny Leonov's had plenty of flip-flops in this race already, I'd say.
When the lateral load is obviously with the load transferred, and there's a lot of it transferred through Le Farnier. Yeah, you swap the car from side to side, and especially if you're carrying quite a heavy fuel load as well, the weight is then exacerbated, and the force is multiplied just due to the sheer speed you take these corners as well. So it's a balance of risk and reward in many ways for these drivers to cope with. Matteo Lovisi, purple inside the middle sector with a 67.094. So this is his attempts of trying to clap back against Ludovico Larini, but he's got work to do because it's 3.1 seconds, and we're not even yet factoring in the driver change period, which will include that handicap FIMES team of 5 seconds. So Pietro Dali Guaranti is going to have to honour that when he steps in place of Matteo Lovisi.
Another fastest lap of the race last time around by the race leader Ludovico Larini, now down into the 25s. Actually on this lap, Matteo Lovisi coming back in by 0.3 of a second and doing the fastest lap of the race himself. So the gap down to 2.6 seconds, but still a decent advantage for the bi-race driver as we watch the AM leaders make their way down towards Eau Rouge, which is the bottom of the hill, and heading up Radion, which literally means steep hill, 40-meter climb up there.
Absolutely right. Almighty run. I've stood on the run up through Eau Rouge and Radion and even parts of Kemmel, and it's amazing how vertical it really is.
I did the first time I came to Spa 3 years ago. I said I have to do it. It's a rite of passage. So I get up there and I just thought, oh my goodness, I've got not the best knees. But it took its toll on my dicky knee for sure. It's incredibly steep, and I know everyone always says this, but the camera work just does not do it justice at all. It is something you really have to come and see yourself, as Navarrete comes a little bit wide through Rivage. That is another steep part of the racetrack, and in fact the GT Sports team members are making their way around the circuit on electric scooters earlier in the week. And I've had no official confirmation of this, but I sincerely doubt those scooters made it up Eau Rouge under their own steam.
Well, I was about to say, even the F4 cars struggle to make it up to that precipice to the top of Kemmel. I've heard stories of drivers that have raced at that level, and it's a real concern sometimes for them to attempt to make it. I seem to remember French F4, and it was a topic of discussion back then, going back a few years. But it really is immensely, you know, heavy to take a car up Kemmel like that. But not a problem for these sports cars that have quite a deal of power underneath them.
Yeah, 510 horsepower from the 4-litre flat 6. As Matteo Lovisi does, that's confirmation last time round, the fastest lap of the race. And yeah, that 510 horsepower. These are still the, I want to say previous generation, but the non-Evo version of the 992 Cup car, which was introduced this year, but in very select championships, which hasn't quite made its way to us just yet. And oh, we've had the change for the lead in the AM category. Fernando Navarrete has found his way through on the LMR Porsche of Dieter Sveps. So that is a change for the lead, change for third position overall.
And a very poor lap the last time out for Larini as well. 2:29.376, 2 seconds near enough gained.
Look how much closer it is for the lead now. It's under a second.
Well, it was over 3 seconds before.
Yeah.
He's brought it straight back in now to 7/10. So Lovisi, it wasn't necessarily that Lovisi pulled off a great lap. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a good lap. 2:27.516 is competitive, but it was an exceptionally poor lap by Larini standards with a 2:29.376. So
they're all lapping about 2, 3, some of them even 4 seconds a lap slower though.
Yeah.
And I think that is because the rain is starting to come down a little bit harder. In fact, we can see it on the commentary box window. We're starting to see it on the cameras as well. Yeah, it is visibly raining much harder now. So these cars are starting to struggle. We've got a moment here for Fagani Saloub coming out of the curve at Paul Frette through the gravel trap.
we could see the wet tyres coming out during the driver change.
We could well do. It depends if this is just a passing shower or not, but some split strategies are on offer here because the driver change window is going to open in only 2.5 minutes' time. And at this point, what do you do? Do you assume it's going to keep raining?
That looks hard to me, Chris. I got to be honest. I'm watching it, you know, down on the ground. We are getting some splash on the ground. So I would anticipate potentially we'll see an emergence of the wet tyres here right now.
So 31 minutes left on the clock. The lead gap shrinking between Larini and Lovisi. The battle for the lead in AM switching sides as Sveps lost it on that previous lap, and keeping an eye on the progress of Jurian de Back. He'll be handing over to Paul Meyer. You imagine will make short work of the two AM cars in front of him when he takes over the car. But we have rain on the racetrack in various intensities. You can see they're starting to leave lines on the track now where they're driving through. So I would imagine that the wet tyres are going to be called for very shortly, and they can't come in this lap. It'll have to be one more tour of the circuit before they can make their way into the pit lane. There's nothing stopping them from actually doing the change, but you just wouldn't want to do it because you'd lose way too much time.
Well, it means you'd have to stop twice.
Exactly, and Lovisi was sideways under braking into La Source, and so one more tour of the circuit before they can come in and change those tyres and change the drivers.
How much do you think they're going to lift off now through a Rouge and Radeon?
Let's listen.
They have to.
Even a downshift. Oh, he's wrestling the car through there.
There you go. That tells a story, everybody. I have no doubt in my mind wet tyres are going to make an appearance when the driver change window opens up. We now have got side-by-side Leonov on the inside there. There's the GT Corsa of Alejandro Barambio getting through past him. So Leonov coming into the pits. Now that's before the window. 30 seconds still to go, Mr. Leonov. You might have to come in again unless this is a retirement.
Yeah, I mean, we suspected there was something wrong with this car from the get-go, given how many off-track excursions it's had. Seems to have quietened down since then. But, of course, he doesn't have a driver to hand over to. It's just himself.
Is that?
And those are slicks. Yeah. Those are slicks. Now, was there a slow puncture?
I mentioned the left rear, and it didn't look right
They're inspecting it very closely. But, to be honest, I would be requesting some wets now at this point.
Well, I would be too. I don't think slicks is the answer, unless he has to do one more lap and then bring it in. But the change is open now, so what do they do?
I think you just take the penalty at this point.
Yeah.
So that was Barambio getting around Giacomo Gibergia, the GT Course car ahead of the GDL car. But yeah, if there was a slow puncture on that Volcano Motorsport car, that would explain a great deal of what we saw in the early phase of the race. And I think probably what they've done is they've run that as basically as long as they could before it literally popped.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was just 30 seconds too early.
Well, it was probably that combined with the added threat of rain, that might have meant that they turn around and said, well, we're having trouble enough with grip with the state of the tyre right now. If you add rain into that and a greasy circuit, it's only going to make it worse.
This is getting very close between Jurien de Back, Longoni and Barosh for 5th, 6th and 7th. How many of these guys are going to be coming in at the end of this lap? Or, well, should I say at the start of the next lap, because it's after La Source that they come in. They're using the support pits this weekend, so they swing right out of La Source. And Longoni having a big think about looking up the inside there, struggling so much for grip as they're sliding around through.
They're not coming in yet. Oh no, of course it's the next pit lane. Gets me every time.
We'll find out. We'll find out in about one corner how many people are coming in. Larini may wish to stay out there, but it depends if you'd rather have your quick driver in or be on the right tyre.
Well, this is it, the payoff, isn't it?
Well, you're in the back in, Jose Barros in, and Rick van Zwierden in, and is that Bernardo Pinheiro as well? Yes, it is.
Well, it's twofold that it's required for Jurien de Back to come in, because obviously he wants to put Paul Meyer in the car and at the same time stick the wet tyres on.
Yeah, so it's kind of perfect for them, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
As Longoni handing the 22 over to Simone Inaquenta, which is subbing for Nicolo Schiro this weekend. Paul Meyer getting aboard the number 7.
They have time to serve, though.
Yeah, they do. 10 seconds after victory yesterday, so that could play a part. Larini and Lavisi have stayed out, though, as have the AM leaders. I'm wondering just how intense the rain still is, because it almost looks like it's already stopped.
No, still going.
Raining out there.
Still going. Yeah, I'm seeing it. Still going. Yeah, I can see it in the... Luckily enough, we've got trees in the background, so it provides a contrast. So.
But they're keeping slick tyres on these cars, though. Oh, no, that was one wet tyre going.
Yeah,
but it looked like they had one slick tyre and one wet tyre going on that car there. So hopefully...
It might have been the angle or something that just sort of gave it...
maybe.
Yeah.
So it certainly looked like a very slick tyre that was going on there. But, yeah, definitely there was one wet tyre going on the car, at the very least.
Yeah, the clouds still look exceptional. You know, they still look grey out there. Yeah. I can't see them taking liberties with this.
Spray coming off the curbs there as well. So, yeah, what do you do?
I mean, it hasn't yet been declared a wet race so far as such.
I was declared wet before the start.
Oh, before the start, of course, right. So there we are. Yeah, no, obviously it disappeared off our timing screen. But
yeah, that message is long gone.
Yeah, long gone. But we can obviously tell from what we're seeing in the sky right now, and I can tell you it is coming down harder again now. You might be able to see it a little bit better as we now speak. But the number 4 of Ludovico Larini still leading the race, and I'd imagine looking to perhaps venture into the pits himself a bye race. Obviously, Matteo Lavisi following him as well. I've still got Pietro Deli Guanti who can step in as well, who's relatively fast. So it's not over for Fime's team at this stage. You know, they can still do something here. Still on the back of Larini. We'll see whether they do opt for that wet weather tyre as well if they do come into the pits. And indeed, in comes Lavisi now. Larini's still going.
Yep, Larini stayed out, so the bye race crew keeping Larini out for another lap. Will they come to regret that if the wet tyres prove to be far, far quicker? If indeed that is what the Ebby Motors Run Fimes crew are going to put on his car. So Lavisi into his box. Nicely on the marks there. And Pietro Deli Guanti will take over the number 1 championship contending Fimes team car. We're talking about all season. It seems like it's going to be a battle between this car and the number 7 throughout the entire season. But this is the first time we've seen Bi-Race throw their hat into the ring, as Jose Barros is also into pit lane in the 77 from AF Motorsport. AF Motorsports running in this and the International GT Open. Bit of drifting there from Ludovico Larini, showing you how much of a premium the grip is at the moment. But the 29-year-old from Fidenza in Italy, more than capable of handling the Porsche Cup car, as he has done for the last 7 years or so now, when he first made his Carrera Cup Italy appearance back in 2019. Back out onto the racetrack comes the number 1 car with Pietro Deli Guanti at the wheel.
Yeah, it was a bit awkward there for Deli Guanti to leave his box. He kind of let the Marcondes Porsche past first so it could box and sort of take its position. So it wasn't the quickest of escapes from their pit bay.
Was it wet tyres they put on? Did we see that?
We didn't actually get to see them pull the tyres out, so I'm not overly sure what they've decided to do, to be quite honest. But I'll be honest, that rain is still coming down as we speak, so I can't imagine. You know, I just can't fathom a thought that they would commit. And just look at that.
Oh, leader off the road and
there we are, into the gravel.
Oh, into the wall. And he's going to hit the wall. Staying out that extra lap has cost them big time.
I think they just escaped the wall there, Chris.
No, there's damage to the front right.
Yeah.
They might have gotten away with it in terms of doing any mechanical under-the-skin damage, but there is certainly bodywork damage on the front right of that bi-race car. And it already looks like he's struggling for pace, but this was the moment. A little wiggle in Blanchimont, and there are no small accidents there.
Goodness me.
Staying out that extra lap was a brave call there from the bi-race crew. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be very costly for Ludovico Larini, who does now bring that car into the pit lane. And I think we will have dispelled of any debate about what tyre you want to be on for the second part of this race now for the remaining 22 minutes, but they were running it down to the last possible moment. 1 minute left on the driver change window. Diego Stifter will take over that car, and unfortunately there's not going to be an awful lot of feedback for Diego Stifter to give to where's his team? I assumed this lot were his team, but that's actually the LMR crew. And he's tried to get them to move forward.
Yeah, he's gone. They were all stationed over here. So
has he stopped in the wrong box?
I think he stopped in the wrong box.
Yeah, that's the bi-race crew that's now running to come and get him. He's gone past his pit box. Oh my goodness, when it rains, it pours. What a terrible mistake there from Ludovico Larini. And despite the handicap of the Fimes car, you have to imagine that Pietro Deli Guanti is now going to take over the lead of the race.
Maybe flustered after the incident coming through the final sector. I'm not quite sure. You know, maybe it got into his head a little bit. You know, these things can happen. We've seen that happen in motorsport before where cars have ventured into the wrong box, but that is a mistake that is going to cost him, because now Pietro Deli Guanti, whilst 4 cars sit in the pits and he sits in P5, he's going to move to the front of the order, and it will be Fimes' team back on top.
So they're replacing the front splitter. I wonder if race control are going to look at that, because if they haven't moved him back into his box, then technically they're not working on the car in the correct area. Look at it, very close again for the AM lead, this time with Leandro Martins moving past Fernando Pedrera, and that is on their outlap. So they're back out onto the racetrack now. It's LMR that leads once again and is second overall now, ahead of the Tsunami Run Porsche of Pedrera. Simone Iaquinta is 4th, 5 seconds behind these guys. So you imagine that ZRS car will usurp them. And then Giacomo Pedrini is now 5th in the second of the Fimes team cars. That's made the biggest gains out there. Paul Meyer, meanwhile, is 33 seconds off the race lead after having to take that 10-second handicap in 8th position.
I think it was just a little bit too much, I think, for both he and Yurian de Back to measure against. Obviously, Paul Meyer is a sensational driver in this championship, but I just think this might be a bit too much of an ask, even for the Flying Dutchman, to try and dig in and overtake a series of cars in order to achieve a podium here. This, in fact, has really landed Leandro Martins and Dieter Schweppes in an incredible position where they in AM class can potentially represent on the podium. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, still a fair ways to go, 19 minutes or so, as we now watch the cars make their way through the next section. This is the 22 of Simone Quinta, looking to make his way through the field past Fernando Pedrera.
It's driving right around the outside of the curve, Paul Frere. And so a lot more confidence for Iaquinta, of course a pro driver.
Very bold move.
Yeah, indeed. And I think he'll make short work of Leandro Martins as well, the AM leader. Maybe even into Blanchimont, yes, and Martins not putting up a fight for that one. So Simone Iaquinta now moves up into 2nd position in this race. And we'll get a look at what the gap is when he gets over the timing line and see if there's any possibility that the Carrera Cup Italy and Super Cup racer can close down the gap potentially to Pietro Deli Guanti. Expecting Quinta to cross the line first. So, look, that's the...
There they are, look.
Oh.
There they are.
No, I wonder if that was...
That's my race.
Yeah, I need to see the
Could
the
just
logo
about see the writing on the actual...
So I wonder if that was him being waved in, wasn't it? And look, and there's Diego Stifter making his way down. Like, guys, we've got to come down here. So yeah, that was his lollipop guy trying to wave him in and just drove clean past him.
Obviously tried to move that here just to alert to him to stop, you know, and but no, he whether he didn't see it, I mean, I can't imagine how he couldn't have done, because of course it was blazing orange right in front. So I'm not quite sure what happened there, the miscommunication, and it has cost them dearly.
Yeah, because where has that car come out in eighth
yeah.
position? Now, well, it was 7th. Paul Myers just passed him, actually. That's the race leader going very, very wide. I think they may have braved this out on slicks. Just looking at how that car is handling, which is
Don't want to dally on those curbs either. Too much.
I know, right? They are really taking liberties out there. Oh, dear. Jose Barros back into pit lane.
Those are wet tyres.
For a change to wet tyres. Now, we saw it in the Euroformula race earlier. We saw teams coming in for wet tyres. Well, actually, it was the other way around. It was a wet start and then moving on to slicks. And they did not make sufficient gains. So this has surely just got to be about Barros keeping it on the racetrack and avoiding having a pretty nasty and expensive incident, which is what the ZRS Motorsport car has just avoided from 2nd position in the race. Simonia Quinta may well just hang on to 2nd place. Such was his advantage over Leandro Martins and Fernando Pedrera. But a moment at Pouon for the 2nd place car.
Yeah, and he's got to be careful, because obviously those tyres are probably likely feeling the effects of that spin already soon enough. So you've got to be really cautious not to let it happen again. And the likelihood of it happening back-to-back is certainly very high as far as the potential is concerned. Team managers for car 77 and 6 to report to race control immediately. There's the spin for Simona Quinta.
Arriving backwards, scene of the accident. Look at these two battling for the AM lead still. So Martins took it either in pit lane or out of the pit lane. They're on their out lap when we picked them up. But Fernando Pedrera wants to take that lead back again for the Tsunami squad. They came here in the lead of the AM Championship, winners of the first race of the season in Portimao. That's the Pro-Am car of
Sampao.
Flavio Sampao, yes, the number 11 LMR car. And now we wondered if this was one of the cars that was on wet tyres, but maybe it did eventually go out on slicks, and that is at the top of Radion and has gone backwards into the barrier. The yellow flags are flying out there. Doesn't seem to be able to get it going again as Pedrera has the look on the inside. There's dirt and detritus and bits of bodywork starting to be strewn across the racetrack now. There'll be no overtaking through here as there's a yellow flag zone ahead.
They have to be so cautious through here now, Chris.
Big sideways moment for both of those cars, and there's a sideways moment for the YAM leader. Leandro Martins is around and going backwards across the racetrack at a blind point on the racetrack. Please, everybody go cautiously through there, and Martins does manage to get it off the circuit before anybody came in at speed. Thank goodness there were already yellows at the bottom of the hill.
Safety car.
And, yeah, the safety car being deployed.
2 LMRs at the same section of circuit, both spinning. But Leandro Martins, oh my goodness. Let's take a look at this. This looks like, there we are, Sampao losing it.
And heading towards the Barros car that was heading out of the pit lane.
Barros probably thanking his lucky stars that he managed to get past that in a timely fashion.
Goodness me. And this is the moment for Martins. It loses it in the middle of Radion. And Pedrera was having his own moment. And, that is the scariest place
Goodness me.
in motorsport, possibly, to be rolling backwards.
Yeah.
So what's the deal here? Do we let everybody come into the pits and put on wet tyres? Because if we just pootle around behind the safety car with rapidly cooling slick tyres, that's not going to do anyone any favours.
Well, probably not, no, because obviously the theory is you can't do it in this situation, can you, really? But there we go.
I'm sure the safety car is more in retaliation to the parked Flavio Sampao car at the top of Radion.
Well, it's not in a safe position, is it?
No, it is not. Yeah. But if we have concerns about these cars being on this racetrack right now, then we're going to have to red flag it. Or allow everybody to come into pit lane and change over to the wet tyres. And so that potentially means letting it go green or having a full course yellow, because you can stop under a full course yellow.
We'll see whether, because race control can obviously override any situation depending on the circumstance. So we'll wait and see whether they do make that call. The safety car there in the distance, you can see lights flashing on the hood, on the top of the car itself, alerting our race leader, Pietro Deli Guanti, to conform to Delta, and the rest of the grid will, of course, catch up. But it's bad news, really, for Fime's team, because, of course, they had a fantastic lead of 21.1 seconds. So with 12 minutes to go, I'd imagine it'll leave us with a small margin to finish the race, if anything. Simona Quinta will be closing the gap to the back of Deli Guanti, and then further back, Pedrera and Hans Wies will soon be joining them as well. Great news for Paul Meyer.
Yes, it is.
Which, because their gap was immense, and not only that, they had to serve that handicap, and now they're going to be plugged to the back of Pedrini, and obviously, coincidentally, the remaining 4 drivers that sit in front of Pedrini as well. This is exactly when you want Meyer to be in the mix, really.
Yeah, good news for kind of all the silver class drivers, really. That is, Leandro Martins, from now 3rd in the AM category, coming into pit lane, presumably for wet tyres.
Yeah,
but my understanding here is that the lane will be closed when the safety car is out.
Well, this is it, and if they do undertake that stop, obviously I'd imagine there will be a penalty delivered, because obviously race control haven't necessarily issued an instruction to suggest that you can change tyres during the safety car. So maybe this is them turning around and saying, well, if we get a penalty, we'll take the penalty.
Yeah, very much so. It's got to be worth it, surely.
Yeah.
If it's going to keep you on the racetrack. So this is why we're under safety car. Flavio Sampao losing it at the top of Radion. That LMR car spearing towards the barriers, and thankfully Jose Barros was out of the way by the time the LMR Porsche met the tyre stack. You say the cars are even struggling to catch up to the safety car. There's a good 35-second gap
race control
between the 2nd and 3rd cars.
Race control issuing the instruction, all cars to follow the safety car lane, no waving. So we're seeing...
There's supposed to be no weaving.
No weaving, yeah, but we know what it means. But, you know, you can just see behind them right now, they're weaving.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, to be honest, because they're clearly struggling for grip and tyre temperature.
Yeah.
Unless that means no wave by or anything like that.
Maybe. It might not mean what we think it does, perhaps.
Maybe.
We'll wait and see.
We'll see if there's any clarification on that one. In typical Spa fashion, George, the sun is now out.
I know, I was about to say. The rain is still falling at the moment, but the sunshine has peeked through. Now, whether that does mean that we will see a dry line come out, the safety car has been allowed to continue. I'm not seeing whether the lights are still on, so we're still under safety car conditions, but Deli Guanti fully backed off as they made their way through the chicane. But the cars are all starting to catch up now.
Yeah, then we still can see some rain falling. Just typical Spa-Francorchamps weather and subsequently race. Well, of course, this is good news for Evgeny Leonov.
Yeah.
Although actually he is a lap down, isn't he? So this isn't going to do him any favours. Potentially that's what that no waving message meant. There's going to be no wave by for the lapped cars.
Yeah.
So 9 minutes left on the clock. Pietro Deli Guanti leads for the Fimes team. He is ahead of ZRS Motorsports' Simone Iaquinta in the 22. And we have our AM leaders, Fernando Pedrera for the Tsunami squad, the championship leaders in that category ahead of this weekend. And then yesterday's race winners, Hans Weiss from Hans Weiss Motorsport in number 5. And then comes Giacomo Pedrini in the second of the Fimes team cars. And is this Leandro Martins going off under the safety car? It is.
It is, yeah.
My goodness me. So that might be why he came in, because he was struggling to keep it on the racetrack even at low speed. Behind Pedrini comes Paul Meyer, the championship leader, the number 7 car from Hans Weiss, and then Diego Stifter. Remember, that is the car that was leading early doors, the number 4 bi-race car, before a mistake from Ludovico Larini in the pit lane. Well, first of all, Blanchimont, and then in the pit lane, stopping in the wrong box. Then comes our top 2 in Pro-Am, Borja Garcia for GT Corsa, ahead of Lars Zanen in the number 6 HWM car, and H. de Mello completing the top 10 and the provisional AM podium. We have Leandro Martins circulating back out on the racetrack, trying to catch safety car Q. Same for Nelson Monteiro Jr., I believe, and Jose Barros. Meanwhile, Evgeny Leonov at the back of this train of cars, because he is in last position a lap down. And then the only car we've lost so far, amazingly, despite all the drama, is Flavio Sampaio in the number 11 LMR car.
Yeah, of course, that was the car that was stopped at the top of Eau Rouge Radion and skitted over across the, well, and hit the barrier, just past the painted section. And then, of course, we saw its fellow sister car, the one being driven by Leandro Martins, which very nearly veered back onto the racetrack itself, which could have ended in a grisly fashion. Luckily enough, everyone got through unscathed. And we go through again with the safety car still in full swing, with lights ablaze, and Deli Guanti still leading the way. But many questions have to be asked. Firstly, how much time are we going to have left at the end of this safety car? And then on top of that, has Paul Meyer got an opportunity here to land a spectacular podium? He's going to have to get through some drivers, but I would never put it past Paul Meyer, because this is, again, a circumstance on many levels that he may thrive in, because obviously the wet weather is tricky for a lot of the drivers to cope with, but with the experience of Paul Meyer, you'd expect him to make use of this situation.
He certainly would, because well, as it stands, he'll only be 5 seconds behind the race leader. He was more than 30 before the safety car came out, so depending on how much time there will be left when we go. In fact, I can answer you right now. Safety car is in this lap, George.
There we are.
So we're probably talking 4 minutes left on the clock and
couple of
two laps of racing. Yeah. Hopefully the circuit's drying up a little bit. It's looking like it's drying up a little bit there. The sun coming out and will hopefully help that a little bit. But they will be with low tyre temperatures and low tyre temperatures as well. So hopefully everybody just takes it a bit easy on the restart.
But is that sunshine at one point on the circuit? Is it raining harder on another patch?
It's at that point on the racetrack, George. That's all I can tell you, mate.
Well, the thing is, you've got to ask these things because, of course, like we know about Spa, it's certainly one of the longest tracks you're going to see on our calendar. And, you know, it covers a lot of ground. So you've got to think there's likely going to be damper patches elsewhere. We saw, of course, our earlier race leader skit off at Blanchimont and into the barrier. So, you know, that was the bi-race car that eventually came in and had the issue with the pit stop, with Diego Stifter now behind the wheel in P7 behind Paul Meyer as it stands. But yeah, opportunities are plenty for everyone across the grid. It's now become a bit of an uncomfortable situation for Deli Guanti because Simona Quinter is no slouch and could be in contest for a sensational race win here.
Could be. So it'll be Fimes versus ZRS. Be great for ZRS to take a victory after such a difficult weekend in Portimao, where they did not score any points, did not finish either race because they were involved in other people's accidents. So to take a win here this weekend, that would certainly feel like redemption. He's going to have to deal with Pietro Deli Guanti, former GT3 racer, before doing so. So it will be roughly 4 minutes left on the clock when we go over the timing line. 2 laps of racing will remain when Deli Guanti eventually decides to put his foot down, but probably with not too much aggression, just squeezing the throttle pedal for these last 2 laps as the circuit is still damp, the tyres are cold, the temperatures are low, but we're going racing And did Paul Meyer jump the gun there a little bit too early on Giacomo Pedrini? I don't think he did, to the tune of 34 thousandths of a second, so that was very well managed there by Paul Meyer. He did get around the Pedrini Fimes car. Deli Guanti is off like a scalded cat out of the sauce.
Needs to be as well, because Quinter is going to be all over his tail. Pedrera not far away either. Hans Wies as well. Now, will he allow Meyer through? That's the big question as well, because of course he knows that he's in contest potentially for this championship this season. Doesn't want to be a thought in the side of that. Just look at the pool of water now. The spray being elevated in front of every single car, making its way over Radion. And now on the Kemmel Straight, the heat now attempted to be put into the tyres by Deli Guanti, just shifting from side to side ever so slightly. Don't want to do it too much as now Pedrera and Pedrini start to drop places. Meyer inside P4, wheel to wheel now with the bi-race Porsche. That's Diego Stifter as he now makes his way through as well. Past Boyar Garcia. They now head through now in towards Malmedy. There is the GT Corsa car of Garcia now making its way downhill. A flash of the lights once again. The bi-race car coming under threat, or is it applying the threat here this time? Side by side, very deep lines taken by a few cars on this racetrack. Indeed, it looks like Stifter is on the move and finding his feet after a difficult moment for his teammates earlier on.
The GT Course car getting its nose in there as well. So we think Barros is going to be on wet tyres here. I wonder how much pace he's going to have. He's not looking super fast on this restart, so maybe slicks, once we're up to temperature, are still the order of the moment.
Leonov's on the move.
Yeah, he certainly
NMR
is.
in the background there, sideways.
Look at this for second place with Hans Weiss closing in on Iacquinta.
He's letting through Paul Meyer.
I don't think he was making that too easy. He was driving around the outside of his boss. And so Paul Meyer does go through into third place. And it looks like it's going to be back-to-back victories now for Hans Weiss and Rick van Zweden in the number 5 car in that AM category, because they got around Pedrera. And Paul Meyer now looking at Iacquinta for second place in this race. What a lap for Paul Meyer. There is going to be a 5-second time penalty for the number 6 car. That's Lars Zanen in 9th position for not serving the handicap correctly. But here's Paul Meyer now making a challenge for second position on the outside of the bus stop chicane on Simone Iacquinta. Not able to do it on the brakes, but the Italian runs wide. And Meyer doesn't go through straight away, but lines him up on the exit of the corner and makes life very easy for himself. And so 1 lap to go. The gap is 3 seconds between Paul Meyer and Pietro Deli Guanti. And I think the worst news Deli Guanti can have now is Paul Meyer's behind you.
Hans Wies has let him off the leash as well, and is going to let him let fly at Deli Guanti. So once again, it's a familiar complexion, a story that we've been telling ever since the start of the season. Hans Wies Motorsport taking on Fimes team, the reigning champions from last season with the number 1 emblazoned on their car. They'll be hoping to be number 1 come the end of this very lap, with Deli Guanti in control by 3 seconds. But how much longer will that 3 seconds last? Surely Meyer is going to attempt to put a hole in this. You can just see him there weaving, trying to generate a little bit of temperature into the tyres. He's already dropping Iacquinta at the moment by a second, and then Hans Wies on for an AM victory. So
Paul Meyer was 0.7 of a second quicker than Pietro Deli Guanti in the first sector. The gap down to 2.3.
Could you imagine?
Could Meyer pull this off?
Could you imagine?
In the final 2 laps of this race, from 7th to 1st, that would be an extraordinary thing to happen. I don't know how his N24 went, because we actually haven't had a chance to check those results just yet, but I don't think it will matter if he does manage to pull this off.
I mean, it would be one of the most sensational performances, I think, in the history of the GT Cup Europe if he is to pull this off. I mean, we saw some incredible things when Jan Larison was running in this championship as well, of course, a former champion in this series years ago, as we see Evgeny Leonov once again behind the wheel. Of course, was on a recovery mission in his own right, as they now head down through towards the Lafania chicane. Leonov back on track now, side by side as they come through. Pedrini trying to shut the door, but indeed Leonov with a better run. He's going to try, though, the outside. That's certainly not the ideal run, though, at the second half of that chicane. Leonov trying to keep Lars Zanen in behind, also part of Hans Wies. He's going to go daring up the inside, coming through Campos and Stavilo. No can do.
And 0.9 of a second gain by Paul Meyer in the middle sector. The gap 1.5 seconds. Deli Guanti's got to keep it very neat and tidy in this final sector, but he should just have enough to hang on to it. Lars Zanen lining up a move there, but he's got that 5-second time penalty. Here is Pietro Deli Guanti, and they will return the serve of the Hans Weiss Motorsports team that was served yesterday. Deli Guanti out of the final corner, and it's the second victory of the season for Fimes team, for Deli Guanti and for Matteo Levisi. They take the victory in race 2. Paul Meyer with a stunning last couple of laps there. It is only second for Meyer and for Jurien de Back, and completing the podium for the second time this weekend, Simone Iaquente and Ludovico Longoni for ZRS Motorsport. It is once again victory for Hans Weiss and Rick van Zweden in the number 5 car in the AM category, and a second victory of the season, of the weekend, for Borja Garcia and Alejandro Barambio for the GT Course squad.
Absolutely. What a result for Fimes team, back in the winner's circle. And they now tie up with Jurien de Back and Paul Meyer on number of wins this season. There is one massive differential between these two teams at the moment. Jurien de Back and Paul Meyer have not finished off the podium so far this season.
So it is victory number 2 for Pietro Deli Guanti and Matteo Levisi for Fimes team by EBI Motors. 1.9 clear in the end of Paul Meyer in the Hans Weiss Motorsport number 7 car, the car that was started by Jurien de Back. ZRS Motorsport make it 2 podiums in 2 races for Simone Iaquente and Ludovico Longoni. Hans Weiss taking the AM victory once again ahead of Diego Stifter, what could have been for the bi-race squad, and GT Corsa make it back-to-back Pro-Am victories as well. Also on the AM podio, H. De Mello for the 44 squad in the car that he shares with Giacomo Tabergia from GDL, and also Leandro Martins and Dieter Schweppes. This is what it's done to the championship. 10 points the lead now for Jurien de Back and Paul Meyer over Pietro Deli Guanti and Matteo Levisi, chipping away at the lead there. But as you say, George, they haven't finished off the podium all season long. Those 10 points that they missed out on with a 3rd place finish in Portimao, but a DNF for Levisi and Deli Guanti when they were caught up in someone else's incident, making all the difference there. But a long way to go.
Yeah, of course, that was done at turn 1, wasn't it, at Portimao? Paul Meyer talking in Dutch, unfortunately. We're not getting any insight. Yeah,
apologies in advance for any misgivings you hear, but yeah, someone get that man a drink. He's
had a busy
very
weekend.
much deserved it after this weekend. I think maybe a nap first,
to be fair,
is in order.
They'll probably take that result, because at the end of the day, if they hadn't had the safety car, that would not have happened, and they would not have continued the podium run. Congratulations, though, to Simone Iaquente, of course, bringing the car home, the 22 that managed to make its way forward for ZRS. A slightly better performance in comparison to what happened to them in the International GT Open, where, unfortunately for Pietro Armani, he retired with Norbert Siedler. So something to smile about.
Yes,
at the end of the day.
Very disappointing day for the GT3 side of things, but some retribution in the GT Cup squad. So Jurien de Back and Paul Meyer celebrate their 2nd place finish with the Hans Weiss Motorsport crew. The various entourages down in Parc Fermé, and Lars Zanen offering his congratulations as well after finishing 2nd in the Pro-Am category.
That's it.
So 3rd position for ZRS Motorsport for the 2nd time this weekend. Simone Iaquente and Ludovico Longoni on the podium once again. It's 2nd place, close but no cigar for Jurien de Back and Paul Meyer, but a result they will take at Hans Weiss Motorsport. But the winners for the 2nd time this season at Fimes team by EBI Motors, Matteo Levisi and Pietro Deli Guanti, now within 10 points of the championship lead. So hopefully Alfredo is making his way down to Parc Fermé, and we'll be able to hear from our race winners shortly. Meanwhile, the celebrations continue in Parc Fermé.
We came back, yeah.
Plenty of discussions.
But the barrels guy is crazy,
Some comments on Jose Barros.
Yeah. But it's crazy how they...
So let's take a look back at what's happened over the last 50 minutes of racing. certainly an action-packed 50 minutes of racing. Matteo Lovisi started the Fimes #1 car from pole position. He had the AM runners alongside him, but it was the bi-race car making big moves. Ludovico Laurini moving up to 3rd position and then up to 2nd later on. But Evgeny Leonov with what was suspected to be a slow puncture at the rear of his car, sending him off the circuit several times in the opening few laps of the race. The Volcano Motorsport driver really struggling in the opening stages of the race. Then the rain came and several other drivers started struggling as well. This moment for the number 6 Huntsville Motorsports car. And then staying out a lap too long on those slick tyres for the bi-race car, Ludovico Laurini into the barriers at Blanchimont, and that combined with a pit stop error where he stopped in the wrong box cost him the lead of the race. Pietro Deli Guanti took over the #1 Fimes car, and this was the moment where Laurini stopped in the wrong box, going past his and into the wrong spot in the pit lane. Tense moments at the top of Radion with one Le Mans car facing the barriers. A second one would join him just a few seconds later. Close calls when we got back underway again on the safety car restart with Paul Meyer carving his way through the field up to 2nd place, closing in on Pietro Deli Guanti, but not able to usurp him. And so it's the 2nd victory of the season for Fimes team. So great stuff to round out the weekend here at Spa-Francorchamps for the GT Cup Europe drivers. We will head to Misano in 3 weeks' time on the 6th and 7th of June for 2 more action-packed races. But George, plenty to think about after that one. Some real close quarters racing, and fair play to everybody, especially on that safety car restart, for actually keeping it on the track.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a lot of discussion, wasn't there, in terms of who was on what tyre compound, as to whether was this driver on wets, was this driver on dries. There was indecision, and there was a lot of discussion around the same topic when we were racing in the International GT Open earlier on this afternoon. But I would say the conditions were vastly worse for the GT Cup here this afternoon. They had to deal with conditions that were exacerbated from the GT Open conditions earlier on. We sort of added rain on top of rain, so that was something they had to work with, and obviously it made, for instance, Eau Rouge and Radion so exceptionally wet. LMR, of course, were unfortunately victims of that. We saw what happened as well to the bi-race team, where their race leader at the time obviously ventured into the gravel trap on the run out of Blanchimont, clipping the barrier, which eventually led to them receiving damage to the front right, then of course getting stuck in the wrong pit box. Truly, you wonder what could have been for them had perhaps they managed the race a little bit differently. So again, the weather playing an absolutely critical role in racing here at Spa.
Just to give you an indication of just how much wetter it's gotten since the start of that race, it's been declared that the Euroformula race, which is coming up in a few minutes' time, will start behind the safety car.
So there we go.
So that gives you every indication as to the conditions out there. At the moment, that'll be the final race of the weekend here at Spa-Francorchamps. It's been a great weekend of racing, Spa 500-kilometre race weekend for the International GT Open. And hopefully we'll be going to the podium soon. And we can watch the celebrations of our top 3 drivers overall and in class.
Yeah, obviously waiting to see as to what the plan is next. Obviously, we've got a huge championship to discuss over the course of the campaign. Plenty more action just around the corner. Championship still in its infancy, but I do wonder whether Fimes team are going to live to regret what happened in race 2 at Portimao. Especially.
So, victory in race 2 for Pietro Deli Guanti and Matteo Lovisi. Nice end of the race, Pietro.
Yes, I have to say it was really difficult to keep it on track with the slicks, but we did it, so it's a nice result for us, for the team, for the championship. So I think we have to be very happy for it.
Good. Matteo, happy?
Yeah, very happy. It's probably the tough race of my career, so yeah, I'm very happy. Pietro did a fantastic job, and we took a lot of points for the championship.
Well done.
So the drivers will make their way up to the podium now. And I hope someone's got some towels down there because it looks very slippery.
Yeah, don't slip
out there. It'd be very easy to have quite a painful moment. But Simone Quenta and Ludovico Longoni on the podium for ZRS Motorsport, their second podium finish of the weekend. Paul Meyer caps off probably one of the toughest weekends of his career in terms of schedule management, alongside Jurien de Back there in second place. But it's the second time on the top step of the podium this season for Matteo Lovisi and Pietro Deliguanti.
Profiter pour faire la remise des trophées maintenant. La troisième place, c'est Jean-Baptiste.
So the trophy presentation will commence, and Fabio Pampado's team is growing its trophy collection with 3 more trophies to be gathered here for the 2 drivers and for the team representative as well. There's a Michelin representative handing the trophies over to the second place drivers, and now to the winning drivers, Pietro Deliguanti and Matteo Lovisi. Yeah. And this is, we keep saying it, it's a battle we're going to keep seeing throughout the whole season.
Yep, definitely told a story. If Meyer had another lap, you dare say you would have expected them to win that one.
Well, that's all from GT Cup in Spa-Francorchamps. We're back in 3 weeks' time on the 6th of June. We'll see you then.